China now activates their 300,000 plus students living here in America. And it's not just the students. There are other Chinese migrants, so-called, coming across the southern border in record numbers as the border continues to fail. And so this was an interesting letter that came from the embassy of the People's Republic of China in the United States. And they're sending this specifically to their students here in America. And it's a very interesting letter as we are now embarking into much hotter wars with various superpowers around this world, that China would be sending this to 370,000 people across the United States. It comes from Ambassador Xi Feng to fellow compatriots in the United States. Here's what they say. Dear fellow compatriots, this is China speaking. As I arrive in the United States and begin my tenure as the 12th Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the People's Republic of China to the United States, I wish to reach out to you at the first opportunity and bring you hearty greetings and best wishes from the motherland. The well-being of each and every one of you is close to the heart of our motherland, just as you all follow her development with deep care. Back home, guided by the blueprint drawn at the 20th National Congress, the 1.4 billion plus Chinese people are rolling up their sleeves to advance high-quality development and high-standard opening up and pursue national rejuvenation through a Chinese path to modernization so that every Chinese can live with a better life. A China marching toward modernity is a boon to the Chinese people and to countries across the world. You are most welcome, speaking to the Chinese students here in the United States, to visit China, to experience the progress of the country, and to find opportunities there for self-fulfillment. The Chinese community in the United States is a bridge that connects the two countries. And you all have a stake in China-U.S. relations. Now, China-U.S. relations are experiencing serious difficulties. This is not what China wants to see, nor is it in the fundamental interests of the Chinese and American people, as you must have felt. China has a consistent and clear position on its relations with the U.S. We are committed to the three principles of mutual respect, unless you're flying balloons over us, peaceful coexistence, unless you're flooding our streets with fentanyl, and win-win cooperation, unless you're working with the Russians, to put forward by President Xi Jinping. And we wish to work with the U.S. to explore the right way for the two countries to get along in a new era. This is my mission as Chinese ambassador to the U.S. The journey ahead may be long and arduous, but perseverance will take one to the destination. My colleagues and I will rise to the challenge and work diligently to fulfill our responsibilities. In this process, your support, your involvement, and contribution would be most valuable. Blood is thicker than water. Serving the Chinese nationals overseas and protecting your lawful rights and interests is what all Chinese diplomats must do and do well. My colleagues in the embassy and I will always be there for you. We will help you resolve difficulties and take concrete actions to foster more favorable conditions and environment for your work and your life in the U.S. I look forward to meeting old friends here soon and making new ones. Please come visit me at the embassy. From Xi Feng. So, blood is thicker than water. Help us do what we need to do here in America to make China strong. And this is concerning, of course, because there are 370,000 students here from China, and people have questions about what the Chinese are doing. In fact, we just released a video on Volt Typhoon, which is a Chinese state-sponsored hacking operation that is legitimately interfering with U.S. infrastructure, such that 50 so-called senators got satellite phones to protect themselves in the event of a catastrophic shutdown. And so China just keeps marching forward. Now, you see here, according to Axios, last year there were about 290,000 Chinese students studying. That number has gone up and down. It fluctuates. Previously, during 2017, there was about 363,000. Comprehensive data last year is not yet available. Apparently, they are now looking elsewhere for education. So enrollment is increasing, declining in different parts as the tensions between the two countries continue to increase. Robert Kennedy, running for president, is out talking about this as well. He explained to us that the Chinese are also gobbling up farmland all across America.
Hey everybody, here I am in Sherwood, Connecticut, on Sherwood Island. There's the little woodchuck hall. Shirley Troubadour asked a question about why Gates and China are being allowed to buy up all the farmland in our country. And I'm going to tell you something that I had an experience with. I spent many years, about 20 years, suing the factory farms, the big hog farms, and big chicken producers like Tyson and Bo Pilgrim and Frank Perdue. But Smithfield Foods was the biggest pork producer. And Smithfield came to the state of North Carolina, and they built a slaughterhouse that could process 30,000 pigs a day. And then they had a partner named Wendell Murphy, who was in the state Senate, and he passed 28 laws in the North Carolina State Senate making it illegal to sue a factory farm. And he left and went into partnership with Smithfield, created a way to raise pigs that would instead of raising them on farms, to raise them in warehouses called Murphy 1100. And they dropped the price of pork from 60 cents a pound to 2 cents a pound.
Wow.
It put out of business all 28,000 independent hog farmers in the state of North Carolina, and it replaced them with 2,200 factories, all of them either owned by Smithfield or contracted to Smithfield. The only farmers who could stay in business were farmers who signed that contract with Smithfield to mortgage their homes, to put those big hog sheds, the Murphy 1100s, on their property, and then they lose all control. They become serfs on their own land. Field dictates all their farming practices. It gives them the food. It delivers the piglets, picks up the grown animals and brings them to slaughter, and none of the decisions made on that farm are made by that family farmer anymore. He's no longer a family farmer. He's a serf working on his own farm. They put out of business 28,000 farmers, and they control now 80% of the hog production in North Carolina. Because they dropped the price in North Carolina, Iowa had to adopt the same system, had to cave into Smithfield. They ended up taking control of 80% of the hog production in our country. Then they sold themselves to China.
Yep.
So now China owns all that hog production in America, and it controls our landscapes. And that's the end of Thomas Jefferson's vision of an American democracy rooted in tens of thousands of independent freeholds, each one owned by family farmers, each with a stake in our system of government. And that's why all of this industrial agriculture not only gives us substandard food, and is food that is not nutritious, that is filled with chemicals and hormones and antibiotics, but they're also taking control of our landscapes, and that is a huge threat to American democracy. Hope you guys have a good day.
You too, Robert Kennedy. Thank you for sharing that knowledge with us. I think it's very important that we hear that stuff, and I think our food is being watered down and inflated away. It is being nutrified, inflated, just like our dollars are. And the Chinese are behind it, a lot of it. They're gobbling up a lot of the farmland, as we see. And it's the same pattern that we've seen in other ordeals. In prior shows, we've talked about how Hunter Biden would facilitate very similar transactions. He would go in and he would help buy up portions of businesses, or in the case of the Congo, mining rights, and then they would wait until certain limitations expired, and then they would sell their interest to the Chinese. So these are long-term games where the Chinese will slowly buy shares of a company until they own the whole thing. And when you control the food, when you control the water, you control the population. And so it's a very horrendous thing that's happening. Now, in addition to this, there are record numbers of Chinese migrants coming across the border, and it's a very long trip. People are wondering how they're getting here. The Daily Caller posted this one. They tell us the following. They say, the influx of Chinese migrants crossing the southern border continued through April. Border Patrol encountered 3,100 migrants from China at the U.S.-Mexico border. According to CPB data, Chinese migrants often pay hefty smuggling fees to reach the U.S. They've been found to have large sums of U.S. currency, according to Border Patrol. They've encountered almost 10,000 Chinese migrants at the southern border between October 2022 and April, 39% increase prior to fiscal year. Migrants from Latin America pay around $4,000, according to reports. Right now in China, there's extreme pessimism, especially in people around the age of 20. Chinese migrants encountered by the border so far in the fiscal year 2023 are single adults, legitimate asylum claims. Some are nefarious actors. When I first saw the surge in Chinese migrants, that's the thought that came to my mind. These are either Ministry of State security agents or they're Chinese military who are coming to this country to commit acts of sabotage. Border Patrol sent a memo to agency officials in March warning of the surge in Chinese migrants. Says Chinese national apprehensions will continue to rise across the southwest border. More Chinese nationals successfully reached the United States. Also detailed smuggling routes where Chinese migrants traveled to Istanbul. Then they got Mexican visas. Then they fly to Mexico City pretending to be couples. Then they split off to get to border towns. Migrants are fleeing China due to religious persecution against Christians, the document also said. They don't say much. They just say the Chinese left to escape communism. Chinese migrants pay smugglers $15,000 to $30,000 to make the journey. Cartels know they've got money and they're charging them accordingly. And so if you go down to the border, it's still, madness down there. This is a clip from Allie Bradley. Said she's in Arizona right now. She's a network correspondent from News Nation. Definitely worth a good follow at Allie Bradley TV. She's in Arizona, evidently. Says Arizona happening now. A group of about 100 migrants from several different countries, including China, crossed into Yuma this morning, and they're awaiting to be transported and processed by the Border Patrol. Yuma still experiencing more migrant encounters than it was in the last 2 years. Here's what it looks like. Right down in Yuma. Just walking right in. Biden's border. So not ideal. Now, the question is, what is pulling and causing all of these people to want to immigrate over to the United States or migrate to the United States or invade the United States or create a regiment in the United States? TPR tells us the following, that most of the migrants come from somewhere in Mexico or Central America, but not all of them. Echo Wang, a reporter for Reuters who is part of the team, had the following interview. Says, well, so most of the people, actually all of the people, really with one exception, that I spoke to, they first fly to Hong Kong. Then from Hong Kong, they go to Turkey, to Istanbul. Then they look to a flight to Ecuador, because Ecuador is the only country in South America that is visa-free for Chinese visitors. So from China to Hong Kong to Turkey, Turkey to Ecuador, Ecuador then where? So Ecuador then what? Yeah, a lot of people spend over a month on the roads traveling from Hong Kong all the way to the border. One of the things we've learned is people are trying to get out from the COVID lockdowns. This is communism. Yeah, and this is what our own people are trying to do here. So tell me about the role of social media. Says, well, a lot of people tell me they came across this idea by accident. A lot of people describe to me they're on their TikTok feeds. It's called Douyin in China. And they're scrolling through their TikTok feeds. They go, what the heck is this? You can just go to America? And many people watch the content, and that's how they get started. People are watching this, and they start asking themselves, how do we flee to America? How do we migrate to America? Is the border open? Joe Biden says it is. They say, yeah, sure, come on over. So people hop on in, they come across. The Biden administration is not doing anything really about much of anything other than spending more money in wars with Ukraine and Russia and neglecting everything that's happening here in the United States. So China activates their students and the southern border is as porous as can be. They're buying up the farmlands. Robert Kennedy's talking about it. We'll see if other people out there do.